Really interesting article coming out at abovethelaw.com. It is written by Elie Mystal, and he is a Harvard Law trained attorney. He was a former corporate attorney, and he has written a very controversial piece about what people should do on juries to make sure that people charged with crimes against white Americans be acquitted and let go, almost no matter what the circumstances are. The title is, Here's How Black People Could Use Jury Nullification to Break the Justice System. Now, if you're wondering, why does he want to break the justice system? Well, this part is a very good point. He says, because it's not working for us. It's working for you maybe, but not for us. Look at what just happened to Walter Scott. In broad daylight, we saw Officer Slager down in South Carolina murder him. We saw him shoot him 5 times in the back. And no conviction, acquittal. And so not only was it one juror who held out and said, I will never convict him under any circumstances, but apparently we find out today in the news that there was 5 other jurors who were like, I don't know, is that, forget murder. They're like, is it manslaughter? Not even manslaughter. I mean, come on, he's, you know. So this lawyer is saying, well, okay, if white people are going to say you can murder black people and get away with it, why can't I reverse it? Whoa, okay, so this is really interesting. So he says, black people lucky enough to get on a jury could use that power to acquit any person charged with a crime against white men and white male institutions. It's not about the race of the defendant, but if the alleged victim is a white guy or his bank or his position or his authority, we could acquit. Assault, acquit. Burglary, acquit. Insider trading, acquit. He's saying, I'm not looking to free black defendants. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't care about the defendant, I care about the victim. If you have done something to a white victim, if I'm a black juror, I'm going to let you go. Boy, is that controversial. So let me give you more from his article. He says, African Americans live in a world where the police can murder us and get away with it. Walter Scott proved that. For anybody who still had lingering doubt, there's no justice for black people, and yet violently revolting against the system will get us nowhere. Maybe it's time for black people to use the same tool white people have been using to defy a system they do not consent to: jury nullification. White juries regularly refuse to convict or indict cops for murder. White juries refuse to convict vigilantes who murder black children. White juries refuse to convict other white people for property crimes. White juries act like the law is just a guideline and their personal morality, or lack thereof, should be controlling. Maybe it's time minorities got in the game. So for all the instances that he just mentioned there, he provides a link. And look at just a couple of recent cases. The Bundys go up and take federal property with a ton of weaponry. There's a shootout with cops. Somebody dies. Acquittal. Don't care. You threatened police officers' lives. You did it on tape. Doesn't matter. He's saying there's white people on the jury. They're like, oh yeah, those are some good old boys. Let them go. It's obvious they did it. I don't care. They're white. Let them go. So now Slager shoots the guy in the back 5 times, clear as day, on tape. Everybody can see it. One guy says, I don't care. Let him go. 5 guys, and they're all white in that case. And by the way, also white people on the jury saying, no, convict him. That was murder. But some white folks going, nope, I'm never going to convict him. No, you shot a black guy in the back in broad daylight, let him go. So now this attorney's turning it around and say, okay, then we should do the same thing. Oh, you know, you robbed a white guy? Let him go. You assaulted a white guy? Let him go. How about murder? He gets to that. Murder? What the hell do you think is happening to black people out here? What the hell do you think we're complaining about when your cops shoot us or choke us? Acquit. Don't throw murder at me like it's some kind of moral fault line where the risk of letting one go is too great. Black people are being murdered, and the system isn't doing a damn thing to hold their killers accountable. Sorry, I'm not sorry if this protest idea would put the shoe on the other foot for a change. Now, do I agree with this idea? That perhaps it's time for retribution against white people? No, I don't agree with it. It is, of course, extreme, and I think he means it to be extreme to get people's attention. Because what he's saying is, we protested, and he says it in his article, we protested, we got out in the streets, we asked, we pleaded, we signed petitions, we got a president elected, we did everything we could, and still we can be killed in broad daylight. They could choke us out, they could shoot us in the back and get away with it. So yes, I've got an extreme idea. Now, again, let me be super clear. I absolutely do not agree. And you don't fight injustice with further injustice. So 2 wrongs don't make a right? Yeah, that's true. There's a reason why there is that saying. And if I'm on a jury and somebody actually punched someone, hit someone, robbed someone, did insider trading, murdered someone, I'm not letting them go. No way I'm letting them go, okay? But hear him out. Even if you don't agree, and I guess that a great majority of Americans obviously will not agree. But listen to what he's saying about what's happening to them and why he's proposing this. He says, white people have rendered this country incapable of holding police officers accountable. He says, now if the shoe's on the other foot, let's see what happens in Brooklyn when they can't evict anybody ever again. Refusing to pay rent to a white man? Acquit. Let's see what happens in Hollywood when you can't bring a case against pirates. Stealing the white man's movies? Acquit. It is a bold idea, a slightly dangerous idea, but if he shakes you out of your complacency and you realize how frustrated they are, because I don't think we get it. There is great justifiable anger at what happened to Walter Scott. And in the press, it's barely mentioned in between Donald Trump tweets. But for a lot of African Americans and people of color in this country, they're like, you're not getting it. We're getting murdered out here. It's not a small crime. It's not a traffic ticket. We're getting killed, shot in the back, and nobody's doing a goddamn thing about it, and we never get any justice. He says, white people aren't willing to indict a cop for choking a black man to death in broad daylight. Imagine if black people weren't willing to indict a citizen for punching a white guy in the mouth. So even your own reaction to this story is a little bit telling, because my guess is that a lot of you out there get it, but also a lot of you think, wait, punching a white guy in the mouth and you're going to just let him go? That's crazy. What kind of a monster would do that? Yet at the same time, some of you saw that Slager video shooting Walter Scott in the back, or you saw Eric Garner's life being taken away from him, choked to death, and you thought, well, that's okay. That's a cop doing his job. So a punch is unacceptable, but killing a guy in broad daylight is perfectly acceptable? It is that he is bringing up interesting questions. Again, the strategy I think is wrong. I would never agree to it, but he is shaking people. So the last couple of quotes here. One, he goes to Paul Butler, who's a professor who's made a similar case about jury nullification, and notes that there is a proud history of it here in the United States, in fact, in favor of African Americans. Let him make the case here. He says, it has a proud tradition, slavery used to be legal. Jurors in the North, when slaves would be prosecuted for escaping or people who helped slaves escape, were prosecuted. Northern jurors would say not guilty, even though technically those folks were guilty. I actually believe in the jury system, and I know a lot of people think, oh no, the voters are dumb, and I can't believe that they picked Trump or they picked Bush or whoever. Or if you hate Democrats, I can't believe they picked the Democrats. And they think, oh no, I don't want them on a jury. No, I believe in people. I believe in democracy. And yes, it doesn't always agree with me. Or it doesn't always go in the right direction. But there is great value in being judged by a jury of your peers. And from time to time, jury nullification does make sense. So for example, Dr. Kevorkian was clearly doing assisted suicides. But the people in Michigan said not guilty, even though he clearly had done it, because they thought he should not go to prison for that. There's a reason why juries exist. Now, finally, back to Mistel. He says, understand when the armed forces of the state can shoot me and for no reason get away with it. I am no longer living in a civil society. I'm living in the state of nature, and I have a natural right to defend myself by any means necessary. So I'm not in the any means necessary camp. And he says throughout, I don't want to do violence. Violence is a bad idea, it's a losing strategy, and it's the wrong strategy. Good, I'm glad that he says that. But to me, this is a form of violence because you are letting people who committed acts of violence off. I'm never going to agree to that. Now, at the same time, what I'm asking you to do is to take this controversial article and let it sink in for a second and go, oh, wow, I might not see it, I might not feel it, but there are people in this country who feel like they don't live in civil society. There are no rules, there is no law and order, and that they could be murdered at any time, and that the person who shot or killed them will almost certainly get away with it. That is a scary thought. And you push people into a corner like that, and they start talking like any means necessary. So for God's sake, let's do the right thing and actually fix the justice system, because it isn't working right now. And we have got to get some decent modicum of justice for African Americans, people of color, and by the way, the poor and the middle class. People with great attorneys who are wealthy have a completely different justice system than the rest of us. And it's unacceptable. We have got to do a lot better than this for all Americans. You know who makes independent media possible? You guys. Because of you, we can actually do this show free of any outside influence. That's what makes us so strong. Become a member today. tytnetwork.com/join. You are the media.